Would you like to reduce your net fleet fuel spend by 10 to 23%? Could you use that money in other areas in your company while reducing your carbon footprint at the same time? Click the link below and learn more. Hey everybody, welcome to FEI again. I am Mike Vincent. I am not the freight executive. And my new good friend, Geoffrey Milsom, he is the freight executive. He's a partner at Forerunner Consulting, and they do a lot of different things, but they also in transportation, logistics, strategic consulting, that type of stuff. And you have a logistics background. So, hey, welcome to the show, Geoffrey.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to bouncing around across a couple ideas here today with you.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's going to be tremendous. So, what did you think of Pittsburgh's season this past year?
What was that?
What did you think of the Pirates season this past year?
Here's the thing. So I've got.
I was hoping you're going to be wearing your 1906 or.
You know what? That one I snagged. That one. That's the better one. The Hannes Wagner.
Well, that the Hannes Wagner, exactly. That's like, it reminds me of Field of Dreams, dude. That style.
It's beautiful. I was wearing this other one at the airport recently, and a woman said, "Who's your favorite Pittsburgh Pirate?" And I said, "Roberto Clemente." She expected me to say a current player. I said, "Roberto Clemente." Yeah. And she's like, "I'm Puerto Rican. I love it." And so that really fantastic. Is Roberto Clemente. He was a humanitarian. He's one of those legends in the sport, but also outside of the sport. So I like representing the Pirates, particularly because of Roberto.
Fantastic. I love that. Nobody's ever asked me who my favorite Cleveland Indians player is, but that's the front page of the Cleveland Plain Dealer from 1948 when they won the World Series. So you got Bob Lemon on there, and Satchel Paige and Lou Boudreau and a whole bunch of crazy Hall of Famers in that thing there. But my absolute favorite was large Lenny Barker. I saw him throw his perfect game against the Toronto Blue Jays. I think it was like 79 or 80 or something.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I
was in the stadium with like maybe 7 other people, I think, were there.
That's good.
It was like a Tuesday night. It was early in the year. It was rainy. And Cleveland, the Indians then didn't draw more than maybe 2,000-3,000 people, I think, a game at the most.
Well, nothing like Cleveland Municipal Stadium.
Yeah, exactly. So you can imagine how empty that was. It's an 87,000 seat stadium. There's like 1,500 people in the stands or something like that.
That's right. Built for the Olympics, right?
What's that?
It was built as part of an Olympic bid.
I believe that's true. Yeah, I believe that is true. But hey, what can I say, brother? But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Forerunners. So let's talk about Forerunners and get into how you got into it and that type of stuff. So what are you guys doing there?
Yeah. So we focus on, strategic projects. A lot of those end up revolving around technology and implementation. And we got into this because me and my business partner, I had started about 20 years ago a little e-commerce food distributor business. And well before, Amazon was selling textbooks, and we were doing delivery of about 2,000 SKUs in 30 minutes or less. I mean, this was Amazon Prime before Amazon Prime.
But you said it was food, right?
Yeah, it was food. There was other things, but yeah, it was like late night food, snacks, DVDs. I mean, the things that, you don't buy at the grocery store, but you want.
Like back in the day, I could call you up and say, "Hey, bro, I need like UHF, with Weird Al and like a whole lot of Doritos, bro. Can you bring
water, lots of water." Yeah, exactly. It was like some people were inebriated. And we were that's where they got their Funyuns and everything else. So that's how I sort of got into logistics. I was managing the inventory and the staff, doing all the deliveries, mostly on bicycle, but some motorized vehicles. And that's really like what turned me on to logistics. And I'll tell you what opened my eyes to the world of supply chain was we sold a lot of hookah tobacco. There was a pretty big international population where we were. And we got our hookah tobacco from DHL, right? It was an international import.
Yeah.
And I started talking to the DHL guy and started researching DHL. And I said, holy smokes, the global supply chain's enormous. And I'm doing deliveries in a couple of square mile radius of this massive network. And that's what sort of turned me on to third-party logistics and software systems, and then went throughout my career doing those things. And then a couple of years ago, we just noticed an opportunity to help third-party logistics companies, carriers, and manufacturers, distributors with certain issues that we just don't think a lot of the bigger consulting firms are addressing. And it's been fun. We've had a great time doing it. And then outside of the consulting work that I do, I'm also a professor at the University of Maryland in their supply chain program. And
okay, great.
University of Maryland's got a great program in the undergrad and at the master's level, and a very active supply chain center where I act as a fellow, leading research on a couple of different things, and I'll mention one of those today. So I get to wear an academic hat and a consulting practitioner hat, which is pretty fun.
That is really,
and a pirate's hat from different areas.
And you can't miss the pirate's hat, dude. You cannot miss the pirate's hat. We are family. It's tremendous stuff. I love the throwback uniforms though, and what I always was jealous about was that, not jealous about, but I grew up in Cleveland, and I always liked the fact that Pittsburgh keeps the colors between their professional teams,
and it's the city colors.
Yeah,
and the city flag colors match the uniforms across the teams. It's like,
yeah, I love that aspect of the city. I'm not sure. There's probably a ton of people going, "Oh yeah, that's true," right now, right? Because Anyways, so let's get into the research. We understand how you got into it, and that's really quite interesting. That because I got exposed to it just because my parents said you need to stop bumming around the country and get a job, right? So I wound up, and then I never left, because the more I got into it, I just learned more and more as I was going on. But it was a purposeful going into it type of stuff, or a necessity type of thing. I had to get a job, and Roadway was the first one to offer me a job, so therefore I was going to be a transportation person in logistics, right? But you're now at a university, and you're a fellow, and you're doing all these different things in consulting, and you're working with people who are purposely going into the industry. And to me, that is a much more interesting angle than, it's interesting to hear how people fell into the industry or were born into the industry and that type of stuff. But I love to hear the perspective of purposely going, this is my industry I want to go do.
Yeah. So the inflection point was right around the .com era, actually. A consultant at Accenture coined the term supply chain. And the reason it coincided with the internet is because the extended enterprise, suppliers, vendors, logistics service providers, customers, could all of a sudden connect and communicate in close to real time through email, web browser interfaces and stuff that were extending from their software. And that's what transitioned us from, in the industry, what was called physical distribution and logistics, into supply chain. And even before that, supply chain was just a function of accounting. It was a bean counter, right? It was an expense that was just managed and not thought of as strategic. And as technology evolved, and as these networks grew and became global, people had to act differently about them. And so and then the internet supported that.
It was really, supply chain then was more just straight up procurement, and it didn't.
That's because it came out of accounting. Yeah. It was a buying expense function.
Yeah.
And
that's it.
And in the late 90s, early 2000s, supply chain programs started popping up at universities, and extensive research was beginning to happen, funded by commercial organizations, but also different government agencies. And that's how the center at the University of Maryland popped up. You can look back at some of the stuff that was published in the early 2000s, and the University of Maryland was writing about risk management and resiliency. They were writing about what was called net centricity, which was just like Internet of Things well before it was called that. And so academia, as much as we like to poke fun at it in the business world, academia was like way out in front of some of the supply chain stuff. And so they created majors in their business school, because business schools are a business, and they're looking to expand their programs. And so they created this new major at a lot of universities in undergrad called supply chain. And they started scooping up majors from accounting and other places, and then growing their business school, and kids were coming in and actually getting exposed to supply chain concepts in high school. So over the last 20 years, there's been so much growth in this academic side. It's led to these intentional career paths. And so the large organizations, a lot of the Fortune 500s, particularly around CPG and other manufacturers and distributors, have created supply chain co-op programs and supply chain rotational leadership programs. And they're setting folks off on this very clear trajectory within their organization. And so, yeah, that people aren't just falling into it anymore like a lot of us did, and even before me, that just it was the first job they got offered, and next thing you know, they're working at an LTL terminal on a forklift, and then going into sales, and then going into management. So yeah, it's been great. It's led to a lot more innovation in the supply chain. It's led to some pretty impressive young talent that organizations are able to take advantage of, which is just unlocked a lot of good things for
and the transition continues, right? Because I mean it's becoming an intentional career path, right? And an intentional subject of study, an ology, right? Not ideation now, it gets combined with computer science as well, right?
So that's been a big trend, I can tell you, on talent management and development side, both in universities and in companies. And that is historically, back to consumer packaged goods, marketing was the driver of things, and that led to supply chain. Marketing makes the promise, supply chain delivers the promise, right? Or keeps the promise.
Right. Well, I used to say I'm in operations. I make sure I'm the one who turns the sales rep's lies into reality.
Right, exactly. And so that's part of where supply chain came out of, that marketing function in CPG. And so we saw a lot of dual majors, marketing, supply chain. Okay, that was like the number one. Now we see a lot more IS, information system, out of decisions, operations, and information technology, coupled with supply chain. We see data analytics in supply chain. We see international in supply chain. And we see a lot of folks in the engineering school coming over and getting into supply chain. And so that's evolved within the education space. And companies are the same way, right? When you see historical rotational programs or career pathing was like from the facility into corporate. And now we're seeing within corporate, like data integration systems people cycling through supply chain. So it's great. It's a lot of innovation, as you had said, and a lot of cross-pollination in the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was one of the OGs at Freight Waves. And I mean, that's what we were doing in 2015, 2016, is that we started gathering all this disparate exhaust data that became available through the proliferation of IoT devices and even smartphones, et cetera, all this stuff that was out there. And all the digital communication and cloud computing was exploding all over the place. So all this disparate data that nobody really knew what to do with or had before, we started grabbing all that up for all those analytics and predictive analytics and benchmarking, et cetera, and understanding how the international supply chains work and where those bellwether signals were and all that type of stuff, to be able to better manage your logistics as a nation, even or as a port, or as a shipper, a consignee, or a carrier, or a intermediary, service provider.
Yeah. Right? Well, what's interesting is that despite all these advancements and innovation, if you talk to leaders in supply chain, whether at the shipper or the logistics service provider, you do hear a lot of like, I want to see back to basics in supply chain, like core fundamentals, because so much of it has gone towards, and just, the recent proliferation of AI and other things, so much time and attention gets spent on these little niche, new, not necessarily proven areas. And there's really a desire to get back to basics and supply chain fundamentals. And so, as the pendulum swings one direction, folks want it to swing back the other. And that's not just on the hard and technical skills in supply chain, but it's also the soft skills. And I think part of this was due to the pandemic, people sort of working from home and going remote and sort of losing some of the professional hygiene. And as people return back to offices, and as people recognize and realize the benefits of being inside of physical operations more frequently in order to solve problems, they're finding like the soft skill side of things is like needs a little refinement and dusting off, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, your research that you mentioned that you were going to get into.
Oh yeah,
more of your research. What are you finding there? What are you seeing there? What is the new trends?
Yeah. So what we're looking at, and we're going to come out with a report next year for the first year. It's going to be a multi-year, hopefully an ongoing, sustained report. But what we're going to do is look at logistics and innovation investment at third-party logistics companies. And the reason we've identified that as an opportunity is because there's lots of good survey information out there, such as the third-party logistics report that comes out of Penn State, right? That talks about shipper and third-party relationships, right? And always compares the discrepancy between how each side see each other's relationship and use of technology and contracting, et cetera. There's really good anecdotal information about technology trends from analysts like Gartner. But that's not survey based like the third party logistics study. It's focus group, it's interview, it's a lot of direct research, so to speak. And there's a few other great reports out there in the market. There's this CSEMP's State of Logistics report, which uses a lot of secondary and tertiary data, market trends, government provided data, with some other supply chain indices. And that's a great report that's put out every year for the last, I think it's on year 30. But what we don't see is any data on how companies are actually spending their money, not asking them, what are your top 5 priorities, but share with us your expenses related to these specific IT and innovation categories so that we can compare and benchmark those folks against each other and with what we're hearing in the industry. And I think we have a hypothesis about what we're going to see, right?
Yeah.
We're going to see not a lot of investment in AI, and we're going to see a lot of investment in tactical execution tools, which is totally fine. And I think what subscribers and readers of this information will be able to do is make better decisions about what they see industry peers that look like them doing related to headcount, shipment volume, number of dock doors, whatever the KPIs are that they want to look at in terms of IT expense, because there's not a lot of good IT spend information related to logistics out there.
See, these type of things excite me, right? Because we always talk about, we haven't always talked about it. Before it was, back in the day, we used to get trained. If you're at a function with a customer and one of our competitors is there and pricing starts to comes up in the conversation, we were specifically taught how to cause a scene and then announce that we were leaving the conversation so that everybody saw it, right? I mean, this was an actual training that we had at Roadway Express.
Yeah.
Right? That when we would practice it. So like if you're at a bar, you would spill your drink so everybody could see you and say, look, I'm leaving right now. My name is Mike Vincent. I'm with Roadway Express. I'm leaving right now. So, I mean, and now we're purposely trying to have, collaboration. We've talked about this for many years, is that collaborative nature to advance forward the efficiencies and performance of supply chains for all kinds of different reasons, not just private business. It's a matter of national security, obviously, and the health and living conditions, the welfare of entire societies and communities, right? Depends on logistics. I think everybody got an all too clear message about that a number of years ago. So this is really exciting because this is what we're talking about. This benchmarking and the third party, so to speak, or that outside, like you guys are doing, that are kind of the outside participants, I guess, in logistics. When you talk about the natural internal participants, these are the type of initiatives that really can drive things forward. So it's very, very exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. It's surprising that, when we spend some time thinking about this and trying to figure out an initiative that would be really impactful, that would drive great decision making for organizations, but also drive a lot of activity and stuff in the center at University of Maryland. We talked to a lot of executives in logistics to say, like, what do you believe that this is a gap, and what would you do this information? And they're like, yeah, this is definitely a gap. Like, we're all willing to share and share sanitized lane data on truckload pricing, for example.
Sure.
But we don't
Anonymized.
have any other metrics that we compare ourselves on, like actual, what did we do, not what do we want to do, what do we say we're going to do, marketing material or surveys. And there's a couple of different interesting use cases. Mid-sized truckload carrier told us that they would use this information to help support IT procurement events. They said,
Sure.
if we know our cost per user on certain groupings of IT expense are here and the market's here, we know when we source that, we need to be more competitive on that. Or we need to acknowledge that we're requiring higher levels of service to support that extra expense in IT, as an example. Mm-hmm. Publicly traded companies have said things like, our investor relations would really like this, because our investor relations is trying to understand, how are we positioning ourselves competitively from a technology perspective? If we're a low cost provider with a broad focused market, technology should be spent in places that make us way more efficient in terms of headcount. Is that true? Yes or no? Our focus, we have a narrow market on highly differentiated services. Does our technology spend tell us that same thing when compared to our peers who have a similar or different strategic focus? And so anyways, there's lots of interesting use cases, because most logistics companies would probably say that about half of their strategy is enabled by technology, right?
Yeah.
There's people, there's equipment, there's other things that are part of their special sauce. But most companies, most logistics service providers now, technology's got to be at least half of what makes them different. Yeah. Whether it's a differentiated service offering to a narrow market, or if they're a low-cost provider to a broad market, or somewhere else on that quadrant.
And that makes the difference. What you're looking at, it obvious. I mean, is it making the difference in actual operations or in their marketing? I think is really the play, right?
An ops person at that organization could say, I'm going to make decisions differently for this reason. Marketing can say this, investor relations can say that, IT can say this for procurement, right? There's all kinds of use cases at an organization to make decisions differently, or just make sure they're positioning themselves correctly in the market. And so, we're pretty excited. We're going to come out with our target now is to collect all that expense data next Q2 and next Q3, so that we can publish the first one in the beginning of 2026 on 2025. And as we build up that model, we're going to pilot a very targeted expense data set from a small number of logistics companies in order to sort of go through a practice scenario and put out a very targeted report. And so that we, honestly, as we set up the infrastructure at the university, we want to make sure we do it with a small data set on a narrow target, and then we can go collect all the larger. I mean, because you could imagine when we're collecting this information from lots of different logistics companies, they're all going to have their own expense account and GL codes and different systems they're using, and we're going to take on the burden of normalizing all this data the first time, and then maintaining that data normalization. And of course, as they change things going forward, we'll have to maintain that. So there's a lot of IT infrastructure to support us collecting and analyzing this data, but we've got plenty of time to do it. So we're excited. Yeah. I have a great team of researchers that we've assembled to.
It's fantastic. The rabbit holes that you can go down with this type of information, and the potentials are the use case. Just as I think they just explode geometrically in my mind. They just keep going. Oh, but you can do this, and you can do this, and you can do this, because there's so many things that need to be there, right? So one of the things you said is having that justification within your own organization is, here's where the market is, here's where we are, but that benchmarking against okay, here's what this company is expending, and here's their actual performance, right? Whether it be
Right.
top line, bottom line, or different P&L lines, right? You got to look at the different P&L lines, because you could have an underperforming company that's investing in technology Y, right? And therefore you look at this and go, well, technology Y obviously isn't as impactful, but it could be a completely different situation why that investment isn't resulting in something positive on the
That's
bottom line. And digging into that is that's more important than even understanding why in the bottom line, right?
that exactly. Yeah, that's going to drive a lot of questions for organizations to go fix things or amplify things in the right places.
Yeah.
Um,
We're
and
investing in the same thing. Why do we suck?
right, that's right. That the why do we suck? Some organizations are really good at saying that. Some will have trouble saying that. But like
Yeah.
everyone struggles. The grass is brown everywhere. As a consultant, we get to go in and see how companies function or dysfunction, and that's pretty common, right? Like we all every organization that stays in business makes money despite itself. Like
Yeah, it's
they
true.
all have
Eventually,
problems and they all
yeah,
figure out how
you're
to
right.
create value and make money because they're motivated to.
You hear it. They're
But
too big to fail. Some of you, they're just too big to fail now, right?
yeah, there's all kinds of reasons why
I
they
remember when we used to say yellow was too big to fail.
whoops.
Oops.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, it'll be fun to see what kind of reactions that people will get and how the thing. I mean, it's going to have to evolve, right? I mean, we have an idea of what it's going to do and how it's going to work, and I'm sure as we collect information and analyze that information and go back and ask questions, why, we're going to learn a lot and we're going to modify our report. So it'll take on a new shape, just like you have a plan. What did Mike Tyson say? Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. And
Exactly.
so we want to get. That's why we're going to do this small targeted one first. We want to get punched in the face before we get into the big ring and do the big report. So, anyways, yeah, that's one thing. That's the biggest thing we're working on at the center at the university, which I think will create a lot of interesting discussions next year.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely tremendous, and I appreciate that. Our time flew by, dude.
Holy smokes!
That's 27 minutes. Pew, just goes.
Gone. I didn't
It's
even
gone.
think we were going to talk about this academic side of things, but we did. That's great.
No, it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. We're gonna have to do another. We'll do another show.
Whatever, man. This was
Yeah,
fun.
because we got more to do. We got more to talk about for sure. But there is no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And dude, I thank you for this, because this was really, really good information, and I love what you guys are doing there. It's absolutely tremendous stuff. Absolutely
Cool.
tremendous stuff. Who needs to reach out to you guys, Forerunners, and how do they do it?
Yeah, I mean, we work with medium to large logistics service providers and shippers. They can see us on the website, forerunnersconsulting.com. They can see us on LinkedIn, reach out. We've got a couple of case studies and client testimonials on there, so you get a sense of who we've done work with and what we're doing. Yeah, you know what? We like when people are struggling and face an issue that they're just nervous about or haven't tackled before. That's where we do really well.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
take them through a process.
I'm sure there's a few of those out there right now.
Yeah. Well, there always is. There always is. Right.
Yeah,
We roll up our
yeah.
sleeves. We like the hard issues. So
Yeah. That's fantastic stuff. Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate it. Did I pronounce that right, Jeff?
Jeff, yeah. Wait, say it one more time.
Jeff.
That was a little too soft. It's a little sharper of a J. That's
A little
fine.
sharper. Okay, got you. I thought maybe it was a soft J, like jogging.
It's a medium soft.
It's just medium. I got you. Excellent stuff. Hey, everybody, thank you for tuning in and watching FEI. Check us out again next time, because we're going to have Schmedium Joff on again very, very soon. We got a lot more stuff to cover. Peace and love, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.